number 1. In Cloud Security Essentials training course, we will cover 5 modules. Module number 1, it is the architectural concepts and design requirements for the cloud infrastructure. Number 2, we will in module number 2, we will start to digging in more details in the security issues for each component of the cloud hosting. In module number 2, we will cover the cloud data security. In module number 3, we will cover cloud platform and infrastructure security. Then cloud application security in module number 4. And finally, the security operations in module number 5. Just for your information, if you are planning for CCSB course, you have one more module. It will not be covered in this course, and it will be the regulation and laws. It will be a different module which covered in the CCSB exam, ISC squared CCSB exam. What are the training rules and responsibilities? Feel free to ask anytime. Please, it is very important that if you attend this training course and you spend almost 9 hours from your time, then you have to understand. Then please don't hesitate to ask. If you don't want to share the question verbally, please write it in the chat. I will have a look on the chat and I will answer all the questions. Share your experience with us if you have any question, if you have any scenario, if you have any practical experience which you pass through your work. It will be a good chance to share it with us. Training evaluation, it's very important for me and you, and I will provide you the URL for the training after the course, after we finish the 3rd day. The course, it will be recorded and we will upload the recording to the YouTube channel, and usually we are leaving this for 6 months. Then you will have enough time to go through it many times if you have any questions. Yes, Shahd, if you have any question, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have some.
Please, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I'm afraid that I'm not able to hear you, Shahd, now.
Okay.
It's very low.
Sorry? Shahd, are you there? Hello? Can you hear me, my friends?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Then I think Shahd, she has a problem with the okay, yes, I have a problem. Okay, no problem, Shahd. Take your time, fix your problem, and please, I will expect your questions when you will be ready. Thank you for asking. Okay. As we mentioned that the training courses, it will be recorded and it will be uploaded into the YouTube. And of course, as we mentioned, please don't hesitate to contact me or online, offline, during this session, after the session. Please feel free, my friends. I am here to help you because security, I consider security, it's a passion. Security, it's a passion, it's not a career. If you will deal with security as a career, I don't think that you will make any success. But security, it's a passion, because security, it's a very difficult field, because security, you have to learn a lot, you have to pass a lot of exams, you have to study every day, you have to update your certificates. Then if you don't feel that security is a passion, I don't think that you will be able to make great success in security. And just between me and you, I will not say any secrets if I tell you security, it has the highest income per year in the market or in IT field in general. It has the highest income in the IT field in general. When we are here to help you to achieve this high income, and I am quite sure that all of you want to achieve this success. Unfortunately, I am afraid that we are 9 persons in the training. We will not be able to introduce ourselves, but just I want to have some more information about you. When you will find some, I have polling questions. I will launch these questions for you now, and I will give 30 seconds for you to answer these questions. I really appreciate if you are able to answer this question. It will help me to understand your experience, and then I will know how can I manage the course and the pace of the course as well. We have only 2 persons who are voting. Where are the others? Please. 4, still have more 3. Okay, Badr. Please don't forget us in your prayer, no problem. Okay. We had 1 minute, then we will end the polling. We have 3 persons. We have more than 10 years security experience. We have 1 person 1 to 5 years, and we have another 1 person. We are considered as beginner. Okay, great. I think it will be good, and we will have the experience, the training course. It will cover a lot of concepts. Then it will help the beginners, and we will cover a lot of other informations, which it will be really helpful for the people who have the experience. There is another question for the IT security experience. How many years for you in security? Not in IT now. Now it's in security. Okay. What about the others? Okay, great. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Okay, excellent. We have 1 person. We have more than 10 years, great in security field. We have 1 person. We have 5 to 10 years experience. 1 person. We have 1 to 5 years, and 4 persons. We have 4 years. Again, I will tell you, don't worry, all of you. Any person who are beginners, we will cover a lot of concepts while we are. Can you ask again question? Sorry, what do you mean, Mazhar, by can you ask again question? I did not understand what do you mean. I really appreciate if you can write what do you mean. And also, as we mentioned, for the beginners, we will cover all the concepts as you will see. And please, if you feel that you cannot understand anything, you can stop me and we can work together till the information it will be clear. The last question. I think now it's خلاص. We finished all the questions now. That's great. Then we have some persons who have the good backgrounds about the security and the cloud, and I hope that this course it will be helpful for all of them. The training course, it will be almost for 3 hours, and we will split the hour into 2 sections, 50 minutes for the training and 10 minutes for the pre. Okay. Okay, Mazhar, I answered only one IT security experience. It's okay, no problem, Mazhar. Don't worry. As I mentioned, I understood that from the answers which I received that we have mix and match between the experiences. Some of you, we are considered as beginners, others are have enough experience, and as I told you, I will do my best that I will cover all this experience together, and the people who are be considered as beginners, I will cover a lot of information and definitions for them, and people who are considered as advanced, we will find a lot of other informations which it will be very helpful for them as well. Then don't worry about the question. I think we will be able to you are most welcome. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Let's start module number 1, and this will be architecture concepts and design requirements. Of course, here we mean for the cloud infrastructure and how we, what are the concepts for the designing cloud infrastructure and the hosting these services. What are the topics which it will be covered in this module? We will cover the cloud computing module. We will cover the cloud services, some security concepts related to the cloud computing, design principles for the security cloud computing, what are the identified trusted cloud services, and finally the cloud architecture modules. Let's start our training by the cloud computing. I really appreciate my friends that you will have to concentrate a little bit in this slide, because this is very important. And from this definition, we will be able to find out the characteristics of the cloud computing. By the way, cloud computing definitions, we have a lot of definitions, but frankly speaking, I like this definition, and this definition, it's coming, it is the NEST SB 800-145, NEST from NEST, and you will know why do I like this definition after we explain. I will read it, and I will highlight some important points which I want you to understand. Cloud computing is a module for enable convenient on-demand network access to shared pool of configurable computer resources that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort. This is the main definition of the cloud computing definition. What is the cloud computing? Cloud computing, gentlemen, it is very, very easy. And what you have to understand, it's a group of shared resources. Shared resources. These shared resources, it can be processors, it can be memory, it can be storage, it can be hardware, it can be software, whatever. Then, when we will speak about the characteristics, then number 1, it has shared resources. This number 1, which you have to understand. Shared resources. Okay, what else? As we highlight, we in yellow, we have to understand the other characteristics. On-demand network access. It is on-demand network access. You have to access all the shared resources through the network. When through the network, it may be through internet, it may be private connection, whatever. And it is rapidly provisioned and released. It's very easy and very fast that you can provision a server within few minutes. You can configure a server, make it up and running, and you can start the operation of this server within 5 minutes. Yeah, within 5 minutes, you can have a server and you can start the installation, the operating system or your application, and you can start your operation immediately. Finally, the minimal management effort. There is no need every time if you want to provision a server or you create a server to call the cloud service provider, ask him for a service, ask him to provision a service, and so on. Or if you for example, you want to release some of the resources, there is no need to call again the cloud service provider to release these services. This it will be automatically. There is no need for calling cloud service provider. All what you have, it will be a browser, and you have the management plan of this cloud service provider. You can provision a server, you can release a server, you can increase number of processors, you can increase number of not only processors, I mean memory and all this stuff. And these are the main characteristics of the cloud service, cloud computing. And as we mentioned, as recap, quick recap, the cloud computing, this definition, it's from NIST 800-145. And this definition, it's saying that the cloud computing is a group of resources which are shared between the users, and they are on-demand network, and this is considered as characteristic number one. This characteristic number one for the cloud on-demand network, and characteristic number two, it is shared resource of pool of resources, sorry, when rapidly provision and released. This it is the characteristic number three, and finally minimal management effort. These are the characteristics of the cloud computing. Why we are caring about these characteristics? Because in some situation you will find some engineers, we are confusing between the cloud services and the virtualization. We are saying this virtualization, cloud, it's by the end of the day, it's virtualization. No, cloud is not virtualization. Virtualization, it's the backbone of the cloud computing, but it is not the virtualization, not the cloud computing, and we have a lot of differences, and this it will be very clear during the next few any questions before going further? This is very important. I want to make sure that you understood the definition and the characteristic of the cloud computing as well. Any questions?
It's clear.
Sorry?
I'm saying it is clear.
Okay, excellent. Shahd, are you able to fix the problem or not yet?
Actually, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Your voice is not so clear, but I can hear you. When you ask your questions, please.
Yeah, my question, you answer me. I would to ask. I'm beginner, so I don't know if courses is useful for me or not. But it's answer me in previous minutes.
Okay.
So I have a question in in the third point of cloud and computing. What do you mean rapidly provision?
Provision to create a server. When we are saying provisioning, you will hear this provision word. I will type this word to you. This is a good question. provision. You will hear this word in two different locations in the cloud courses. Number one, when you will say server provision, this means that you want to create a server on the cloud. You want to create a server on the cloud. You don't have a server, you call the cloud service provider and you want to create a server on the cloud. Or in some situation when we will say identity provision, you want to create an account for you. Yani you have to create your account. مثلا for example, my account is Osama, my password it will be so and so. Then this it will be my identity, which it will be used for authentication and authorization. This which we call it provisioning. Is it clear?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You are most welcome. I cannot hear you, sir. I am afraid that if you have a problem, it may be with your PC because the others are able to hear me. I really appreciate if you can check your speaker, make the voice 100% volume, because I think the problem is in your PC. Okay. Now we finished the cloud computing characteristics. Now we will go through the cloud computing characteristics, and we will explain first the characteristics of the cloud computing, which we were highlighting during the last session. On-demand self-service. This is very important. On-demand self-service, as we mentioned before, usually if you want to have a new server in your data center, you have to call your administrator or you have to call the your partner, ask them for a new server to install it in the data center, and this it may take between weeks, and in some other situations it may reach into months. But in our scenario in the cloud computing, this is very easy and it is self-service. This means that what you have to do, that you have to open the cloud service provider management plan and say that I want to provision a server, I want to create a server. It will ask you what the operating system you are interested in, how many processors, how many storage terabyte, and the memory as well. In some situation, you will find the cloud service provider, they are providing you templates. This template, if just you choose it, it will have a specific number of processors, memory, storage from their practical experience. All what you have to do is that choose this template. It will immediately create a virtual machine for you, and with the specific processors, memory, storage, and also we will load the operating system image on it. And first point in the characteristic that it is self-service. You don't need to communicate with anyone. All what you have to do is just to connect to the API, the application programming interface of the cloud service provider, and you should have, of course, the administrative password. Then you will be able to create or provision the servers yourself. The other point, it is the broad network access. This is very important, my friends, and usually I am saying that it will be split into two different areas, not one. First area, that you are able to connect from anywhere. If you have multi-international company all over the world, you have offices in every country, you have small offices in each city, I don't care, because by the end of the day, if you have the internet connection, you will be able to access a service over the internet, wherever your location. Then you will access the same resources as your colleagues who are accessed from a different country. Also, it can be through internal network if you are using a private network, and within few next slides you will understand what they mean by private network. But you can use whatever any network connection to access resources. It may be internet, it may be dedicated connection, it may be shared connection, whatever the connections, we don't have any problem. The other thing which I consider myself as a point of strength that you are able to connect to the cloud computing with any different device. Whatever any device you have, I don't care. I have a laptop with Windows, you are most welcome. I have a Mac notebook, you are most welcome. I have iPad, I have iOS, I have Android, I have Samsung, I have iPhone, I don't care. All these devices are able to access the resources, and the user experience almost it will be the same on all of them, and you will be satisfied when you are able to connect it to all the network resources from even your mobile. And this is considered as one of the really strength point of the cloud. The other characteristic, the third characteristic, as we mentioned for the cloud, it is the resource pooling. As we mentioned, that from the definition, the cloud computing, it's a group of shared resource pools. And these resources, just to name it, yani, to avoid any confusion, my friends, whatever anything you can have it in your on-prem data center, you can have it on the cloud. Maybe servers, it may be storage, it may be software, hardware, load balancers, just name it. VPN, SSL, IP telephony, just name it. I don't care, because by the end of the day, what is the cloud? The cloud, it's considered as a data center which is hosted in somewhere out of your control. That's it. Okay, then it will be considered as a resource pooling or shared resource pooling. Rapid elasticity, this again one of the main characteristics of the cloud. And as we mentioned, if you again, I have two different concepts. If you have one server, and let's say that you provisioned a server and you are working fine, everything is great, and for some reasons you have a campaign, marketing campaign that you will announce a new product and you want your customers to buy this product online, then this means that you are expecting that the number of the user visitors for your website, it will be increased maybe double the number of expected users which you are used to. This means that the server which you have it will be not providing the outstanding performance with the users. It may be very slow, and you are afraid that it may be down. Then you have to configure your server that if it requires any processors, memory, whatever, then it can lease these resources automatically from the shared resource pool. Then now say you are using 2 processors and you are using 16 GB RAM, but due to the increase of the load, you want to increase these resources into 4 processors and the memory into 32 GB RAM, then this it will be okay. It can be done automatically when the number of the users increases, automatically the additional processor, it will be added, and additional memory, it will be added. The performance of the server, it will be great. And when the server it find that these resources are not used anymore, then it will release these resources and it will go back to the shared resource pool again, and you will pay only for the resources which you paid for. You will pay for the resources which you already used before. In the rapid elasticity, we have 2 different concepts. The concepts of the horizontal and vertical expansion. The vertical and horizontal expansion, if you have one server here, and this server is doing great, but now due to marketing campaign, and you want to increase the number of the users or the number of users which you are expecting, it will increase. Then you can add another server, and this means that you are increasing the resources by increasing other server, and this is called horizontal expansion. There is another scenario. If you have one server and instead of adding one more server, you can increase the processors, memory, and so on, and this is called vertical expansion, and both of them are supported in the cloud compute. Okay. Characteristic number 5, it's measured service. Measuring in cloud computing, it's very, very, very important. Why? For many reasons. Do you know why measuring it's very important in the cloud? Just as brainstorming, why do you think that measuring it's important factor in cloud computing?
Maybe to avoid wastage of the resources, or to avoid wastage of the anyway, there's maybe resources or services.
Okay. What else?
Save some data, more data.
Okay, good. What else? Okay.
Also, for cost effectiveness.
Okay. Good answers. The main reasons for measuring services, we have multiple reasons. Number 1, as you remember, we mentioned pay as you use. This is number 1. Then I have to measure how many processors did you use, what is the size of the memory which you use, what is the size of the storage which you use, how many servers did you use, and so on. Then this number 1 for invoicing. Number 2 for performance, because usually you will have something called SLA. Did you hear about this expression before? What is SLA?
Service level agreement.
Yes, service level agreement. Service level agreement, my friends, it's considered as the Bible of cloud computing. SLA, it is considered as the cloud Bible of the cloud computing. Then we will speak about this in more details later during the today, next sessions, and tomorrow and day after tomorrow. But just I want you to keep that this service level agreement, it's a document which you have to include all your requirements related to the service. I want the availability, it will be so and so. I want the processor performance or utilization, it will be a specific amount. It should not decrease than 70%. I want the memory to be at this level. I want the downtime, it will be so and so. I want whatever, anything you want to be included, it should be in the SLA. And please, please, please take care. SLA, don't take the SLA which the cloud service, cloud computing or cloud service provider provided to you, because this this service level agreement, it will protect their services, not yours. You have to define exactly what you require and to be included in the SLA. And as we can see later, for example, suppose that the cloud data center is down, how long it will take that the data it will be moved to the second data center? Is it online or it's in the background? And this means that the data, it should be up and running immediately if the main data center is down, and the other data center, it will take over immediately, or do you accept some downtime? It may be a few hours or whatever. Then whatever you require, it should be in the SLA. Mainly security controls. mainly security controls. Security controls are very important. Usually the cloud service provider, they will provide you the basic security controls as a part of the package. But when you want to have sophisticated security controls, if you are an enterprise organization, you want DLP, you want IRM, you want a lot of other security controls, then this means that you have to pay for it. And you have to mention, I want to have the IRM. This IRM could provide this feature and so on. Or whatever any information required, it could in the SLA. Last point which I want to highlight in the SLA, usually I am saying the cloud computing, it is very tight related to the item. It is very, very tight and related to the item. At least if you want to work with the cloud computing infrastructures, you must attend the ITIL foundation course. I'm not telling you to take any intermediate or advanced or expert courses. This it will be more than required. The ITIL foundation, I think now it's version 4. This it will be enough because it will cover a lot of very important concepts, which we will cover all these concepts in the security operations when we will speak about the change management, capacity management, availability management, release management, a lot of other concepts and information. Sorry for speaking too much about the SLA, but from my practical experience, I found that the SLA is very important, and you have to work very close with the legal department to develop the SLA and the contract, then you can protect your rights. And let's go back again to the point of the characteristics of the cloud computing, the measured service. Why do we need measured service? Number one, we mentioned for invoicing. Number two, we mentioned for the performance monitoring and the SLA is performance monitoring. Number three, for logging as well. Usually you have in the SLA that you have to define to the cloud service provider that you want to collect some logs and events and all this information, which it will be considered as a backbone for troubleshooting any problem or to integrate this into SIM solution, for example. And this will be very important information should be included in the service level agreement as a part of security controls and requirements. Finally, we will come to the building block technology. Building block technology. Gentlemen, let me, sorry, because I am saying gentlemen, although we have Shahd with us, and sorry Shahd for this, because you know I lived in Saudi Arabia for almost 30 years when I used to make the presentations for my colleagues, and I am saying gentlemen, it's normal in Saudi Arabia, then don't take it personally. This is sometimes coming by mistake.
It's okay, no problem.
Thank you. My friends, I will try to explain this in a very simple way, and I really appreciate your concentration in this, because this it will give you a very important concept for building blocks technology. What is building block technology? Building block, we start to hear about this building blocks when the architecture concept came up. I think in the last 10 years, we start to hear some concepts about enterprise architecture, about security architecture, and all this stuff. And what is the architecture? Or what is security architecture? What is not security architecture, also the enterprise architecture? Let's concentrate here on the security architecture, because enterprise architecture, it will be a different issue. What is security architecture? Security architecture, the main objective of the architecture in general, that you have a very complicated picture. Let's have a very complicated picture like that. Okay, and this is our security solution. What do we have in our security solution in the company? We may have a lot of components. We have applications, we have hardware, we have security devices, we have firewalls, we have IPS, we have a lot of things. Then you will say, wow, we have a very complicated diagram here. In some situation, gentlemen, you would say, wow, there is a new technology, it's a great one, there is a good application which it will help us to improve our business, and there may be your general manager, he will ask you to bring this application, but when you will bring the application and put it in the production, you will discover that it's not able to utilize the Active Directory, which is considered your main authentication and authorization server, for example. Then, before the concept of architecture, before the concept of security architecture, people were working as ad hoc. I want this solution, it's nice, I will bring it. Another vendor, he will come, he has a clever salesman, then he will be able to sell me other products. These products, it may operate together, it may not operate, I am not sure, I don't know what can I do. Every maybe 2 or 3 years, I discover that business require more features, and the product which I have, it will not provide me these features. I have to retire this product and buy a new one, and this it will be a lot of money, cost, operations, and by the end of the day, the management will consider IT as a cost center, and unfortunately, they are causing failure for the operations. But the architecture, it came to make very nice things. Just keep in your mind, the architecture, it has 4 objectives. When we say architecture, it has 4 objectives. What are these objectives? Number 1, it will split this complicated picture, which is in front of us here. This complicated picture, I have almost 50 products here, and all of them may be integrated or not, it depends. It will split this into small or smaller building blocks, and this here the building block. This it will be small building blocks. Here building block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number of building blocks. It depends upon your organizations, about your security policy, and so on. Okay, what are these building blocks? These building blocks, it will represent a service. For example, I will say this building block number 1 will be responsible for the IDM. You know what is IDM? Identity Access Management, for authentication, authorization. Identity access management. Then this means that it will be responsible for authentication, authorization, username, passwords, user attributes, and all this stuff. And it will, for example, build on the Active Directory, Microsoft Active Directory. Okay, that's great, no problem. Then we can understand that the first component is IDM, and this is for authentication. Component number 2 may be for VPN, and VPN, I will tell you, okay, you have VPN SSL, and this product, it may, whatever its name, product X. It's a good product in the market. Okay, that's fine. Product number 3, it will be the firewalls. And the firewall, we may have, for example, Cisco, and we may have also FortiNet from FortiGate firewall, and we may have another firewall from Palo Alto, and so on. Then this it will be the other building block for the Palo Alto, then this it will be other building block for firewall. I may have other building block for IPS. for IBS. I may have other building block number 5, and this it will be for anti-malware. Then now, what is the benefit of this? What is the benefit of distributing or dividing in this the complicated security solutions into small building blocks? The benefits of the building blocks, you have 3 things. Number 1, you can understand each block very easy. Now, for example, IDM. We have IDM. This IDM, it consists of Active Directory, Microsoft Active Directory. It may have other provisioning for accounts. It may have single sign-on. It may have whatever, any features. But you can understand the IDM as IDM. But if you are specialized in the IDM, there is no need to know other components. It may confuse you. It may confuse you to know about the firewalls. It's not your specialization. You don't need to know about the firewalls. But just I want to understand the ITM. This is my specializations. I am certified in the ITM. I know how to run it, troubleshoot it, and all this stuff. The other benefit that you can understand now, if we try to make that this is the block. This is the block. Then I can understand the block itself. This is number 1. Number 2, I can understand all the protocols which can work with this component. What are the protocols which are working with this component? These protocols, it can, is it secure components or not? And it will provide any communication or not, and so on. And these are the benefits of the architecture. Now you can understand the concept, you can understand the protocols or communication protocols between these different components. Then you can say that I will enable only secure components, or protocols. I will not allow any protocol which it will speak in clear text with any of these security devices. Any protocol which it will speak in clear text with any of these security components, it will not be allowed. Also, you can know how you can integrate your security components with your applications and hardware. This is very important. Because of that, we are saying when you have an architecture, it's not ad hoc design. You know exactly what you require. I have Active Directory, I have a single sign-on solution, and this it will be basic component for authentication. When I am buying a new software, I have to make sure that it's integrated with the Active Directory. If it's not integrated with the Active Directory, or it's not integrated with X500 standard, then this application, it will not work with me, because this application, it will require a different authentication and authorization system. This means that the operation team, they have to manage 2 different operating system, authentication system. This it will be difficult, and this it will be, it will open risks for attacks and so on. If I have a VPN SSL solution, then I have to make sure that whatever any application, it will be able to be integrated with the VPN, and the application can be accessed through VPN. If I have the information of a firewall, I have to make sure that these firewalls, it will be able to integrate it with the applications. If the applications is built on XML or whatever, then the firewall as XML firewalls, it will be able to monitor the application input. It will check for any LDAP or X500, this LDAP. LDAP or SQL injection commands, then the firewall, it will be able to discover these attacks and it will stop it. Although it is not a part of the application, but because we have professional architecture, security architecture, then we can understand how these components can work together. Then, as recapping, what are the building blocks and the architecture? the architecture or security architecture, it will spread the big security picture into a small building blocks. You will be able to understand each block as a separate entity. You will be able to understand how these blocking blocks are working together, and how we can communicate, and how can be integrated in your network, and how you can integrate all these security solutions with your applications and hardware. These are the characteristics of the cloud, and we include the architecture, security architecture concept as a bonus for you, my friends. If you don't mind, I require 10 minutes as break. The second topic which we will speak about is the cloud service. I think most of you are excited to go through these slides, because it will give you the concepts of the cloud service provider. And usually I like to explain the concept of the cloud service hosting using this slide. Look here, if you have your data center, then you have this on-prem, you have your data center, you are the owner and you are managing all these components, the networks, the storage, servers, virtualization, operating systems, middleware, runtime, data, applications. This is your responsibility to manage all your devices. But if you decide that you want to move into a cloud service provider and you want to host the infrastructure only, as you can see here, deal this level, this we call it the IaaS or IaaS, or infrastructure as a service. What is infrastructure as a service? This means that you are not buying the server, you don't have a data center, you don't have any data center or servers at all. What you have to do, that you are calling your cloud service provider, you ask him to provide you a server. Then he have, of course, the network, he is managing a network, and he manages the storage. Then he will make a server for you or provision servers, and he will have the virtualization, and all these 4 blocks, it will be managed by the provider or the cloud service provider. And this means that it's not under your control, it is under the control of the cloud service provider, and you start to install the operating system, applications, data, and so on. Then whatever under this line, it is in the process of the responsibility of the cloud service provider, and whatever anything up over this line, it will be under the responsibility of the customer himself. Then as IaaS, you will be responsible for the only operating system and above. You are not responsible for anything else. You are not responsible for network, storage, server, virtualization, and so on. But you are responsible that you have to ask for the server, you have to ask for the configuration, server is ready, then you have to install your operating system, applications, data, and you can manage your business. If you want to minimize the efforts on your operation team, then you can have another level of service. What is this another level of service? It will be the application development. Then if you want to host platform as a service, PaaS, this means that in the IaaS, the cloud service provider, he will be responsible for the servers. But in the PaaS, it will be servers plus other 3 components. What are these components? It will be the operating system, middleware, runtime. These are the components which are responsible for developing your applications. Then now, the cloud service provider, he will provide you, for example, with .NET, maybe SQL database or whatever, any database, and so on. Then he will help you to develop your own application, and this application, it will be used for the managing your business. This is the second model, which is called PaaS, as platform as a service. Finally, the SaaS, which all of us know about it, and I'm quite sure that all of you are using the SaaS service maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We are familiar with Office 360. We are familiar with what we can say, the Box.com, Drive, iCloud Drive, or even the Apple Cloud or Google Cloud. All these services are SaaS. What is the SaaS? SaaS, it will provide you everything. You are not responsible for anything. You don't have any responsibility here. The cloud service provider is responsible for the server, the operating systems, the applications, and only what you have to do that to open the interface, run 360, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever you will use, run your application. It's great. You have, of course, you will manage your data. This it's under your responsibility, and you are the owner for the data. But again, it is in the cloud service provider site or infrastructure. These are the main differences between the main 3 cloud service capabilities. And just now we have another expression called XaaS. This is what we call it, everything as a service. Now, virtually, we are saying whatever any service, it can be provided through the cloud. Whatever any service can be provided through the cloud. And in the future, if you have a chance to attend with us any cloud service provider, certified cloud service provider course or whatever, you will understand that in these courses, you can have IDM as a service, you can have IP telephony as a service, you can have e-management as a service, you can have security or cryptography as a service, a lot of these services, and this will be more clear in sophisticated courses. Okay, that's great. Let's have a quick look on each one of them. The IaaS, what are the benefits of the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS? For the IaaS, the scalability. Of course, it's very scalable because, as we mentioned, you can provision a server. If you have one server, you can provision a second server, third server, fourth server, and you can increase the resources of each server. And live, it will be very easy where you can provision your server very quickly. Then it is really a scalable solution. Also, you are minimize the cost of your ownership. Now, in the IaaS, you don't have cost of ownership. And cost of ownership, gentlemen, it is not only the price of the server. It is not only the price of the server. Let's brainstorming together. If I want to run a server in my data center, what do I need? First of all, I want a data center. I want a data center. I want physical security for the data center. I need AC. I need power and maybe power generator, UPS. I need cabinets. I need cabling. I need network. I need operations to manage the servers. I need backup for the servers. All these are considered as cost of ownership. as we call it, a total cost of ownership, TCO, for the server. Then now when you have the cloud service provider, you are minimizing all these costs because you are not paying anything for a data center, for data center facilities, for data center security, for redundancy, whatever. You don't need to provide all these things because they are provided already by the cloud service provider. The second or the third feature is high availability. In the, especially with enterprise cloud service providers, you will find, for example, Amazon, according to my information, they have 54 sites. We have 54 sites all over the world. Then this means that one of the server is down, then the second it can take over, and user he will not feel anything. And in the big organization, usually we are using the service for high availability as well. We are using this service as for high availability. We are saying, okay, if I instead of have on-prem DR site, I can utilize the cloud service and I can have a DR site. Especially, I will not pay anything except if I will use these resources. I did not use the resources, then I will not pay anything. And usually in the in cloud service providers, we are call it a number of nines. Number of nines, of course, it starts with 3 nines, which means that 99.9% is the availability. And in some other cloud service providers, enterprise service provider, we will provide the 5 nines, 5 nines as the cloud service provider. Okay, the other benefit is the physical security requirements. Of course, you don't need any physical security because you don't have a physical data center. If you have a physical data center, this means that you must have fences around the building. You must have lights. You must have a guard, security guard. You must have CCTV. You must have whatever any logging software for the visitors and all this stuff. But now in the cloud service provider, you don't have a data center. The service or the server, it's already hosted in the cloud service provider. Then why do you need it? There is no need for the physical security requirements, and this means that it will it will save a lot of cost and operation cost as well. Location and access dependence. As we mentioned before, that you will be able to access the service from any location. If you have hundreds of offices distributed across the world, this it will not make any difference. You will be able to access your servers through the cloud service provider over the internet, and this it will be very easy because you will have a centralized application data in the cloud service provider, which you can be accessed very easy. Metered usage. Also, we mentioned this in the first session. We mentioned that you are paying as you use. You are paying as you use only. And potential for a green data center. Anyway, this is not considered as a capability of a cloud service, but it's nice to have that we are supporting green environment for the data centers. In the PaaS, what are the advantages for the PaaS auto scaling? As we highlighted before, that if you are using a server and you want to increase the resources, it can be done automatically, dynamically, without any interaction from the cloud service provider. But when the load increased on the server, then it will be very easy that you can increase the resources utilized by the application, and after the load is minimized, then whatever all these resources, it will return to the shared resource pool, and it will be you will pay only for what you use. Multiple host environment and choice of environment. These are two important points. And just I want to highlight it in this way. Just imagine that you have an organization and you are enterprise company. You are providing services to your users. When you are trying to make everything standard. For example, you have operating system Windows 10 as desktop operating system. You may have Windows 2016 or maybe 2012, whatever, in the data center, and you don't have Unix, you don't have Linux, you don't have Mac, you are not supporting this. Then this means that you have a specific infrastructure and you may have some baseline configuration. It's considered as a standard. Then you will provide the service for your users through the cloud service provider, through the service desk. Usually organizations, we are using all this configuration because we want to have single environment when we will be able to manage it, troubleshoot it, and all this stuff. Just imagine if you have a multiple operating systems. Today I have Windows 10, tomorrow may have Windows 11, some other persons, they are interested in Windows 8, they don't want to change it. Then when I call the service desk, they will ask, which operating system do you have? I have 7, I have 8, I have 10, I have 11. This, it will be a mess for them, and they will not be able to solve your problem immediately, and this will take a long time to solve problems, and consequently, it will affect the business performance. And of course, we don't want to affect business performance. Then in organization, you will have a specific configuration. This is standard configuration. You are not allowed to move or change this configuration, and all the developers, they have to work within this picture and these restrictions. But with the cloud live, it's very easy. Now, if I have an application running on Windows and I want to test it on Mac, for example, then it's very easy to provision a server, to install Mac, to install the application, just check it, create another virtual machine to check the application as a client. Then it will be very easy to give the developers the chance for the development. Then development and testing the environment, change operating systems, whatever, because life is very easy. Now your machine, it's running Windows 8, I can power off, power on my machine, I find a different operating system, because it's by the end of the day on the cloud service provider, it's matter of an image. I will load the image of maybe a Mac, maybe Linux, I don't care. At the end of the day, it's just one file, it will be uploaded and everything, it's running fine. And this, it will give the developer the capability to provide more features, applications, high performance, and so on. Flexibility, of course, ease of upgrade, cost effective, easy of use, license. I think we covered all this point. Of course, the license, when you are asking for the best service, you don't have to pay a license. Only what you have to pay the monthly fees, and this monthly fees, it includes all the license. You don't have to care about the operating systems, developing applications, desktops, whatever. This is not your responsibility. It is the cloud service responsibility. For the SaaS, the support cost and efforts, you don't have any support cost because you don't need support. If I don't know if you try to use the Office 365, it's piece of cake. Open the browser, write www.office365.com, write your username and password. You will find the screen, which is exactly the same as the normal Windows, which we know it. There is no difference. No support. You don't need any support. What support do you need? How people, they will open the browser, how they type the Office 365. Even if you are an enterprise company and you want to provide the details for your users, you can develop a video to show them how to go through these steps, and it will take only a few minutes to show them how we can access the application and manage their business. Reduced overall cost. Just imagine, you don't have data centers, You don't have physical security data center. You don't have operations. You don't have AC. You don't have power. You don't have redundancy. You don't have applications. You don't have developers. You don't have operations for management. It may be only one person in IT. It will be more than enough to make the full exercise. This, it will make life very easy for all the people, and this, it will save a lot of money. By the way, just I want to tell you something, a plus from my experience for all of you gentlemen. When you will make an assessment for moving your infrastructure into a cloud, it's not an easy decision. It's not an easy decision because unfortunately there are a lot of organizations, they think, wow, this is a piece of cake, there is no need for data centers, waste time, waste operations, cost, so and so. Let's take it as forklift and move all application to the cloud. Now we are in safe side, everything is running fine. No. Everything is not running fine. This is not the right exercise. This, if you are in Europe or America, you may be subject for prison, believe it or not, because you did not do the due diligence in a proper way. And unfortunately, this is one of the daily problems we are facing in our life. You have to make a proper assessment. If your applications, it can be moved or not. Performance, it may be affected. Security, it can be affected. And we will see this during the next sessions when we speak about data security, architecture, infrastructure security, and application security. And please just think in the reduced overall cost, because some situation, believe it or not, you will find the cloud service, it is more expensive than on-prem service. Cloud service, in some situation, it may be more expensive than the on-prem service. But this, you have to think about a lot of other things, because when you say that, okay, the server, it will cost me $10,000 or let's say $5,000, but the cloud service provider, he say it will cost me $500 per month, $500 per month. This is not the real cost. This is not the real cost. We have the total cost of ownership. What about the redundancy? What about the so in some situations, this may not be enough as a security controls. I have to increase the security controls. I will not accept the basic security controls which are provided. And this means that it will be an additional cost which I have to take it in my consideration. And please take care that the movement to the cloud, it is not a forklift operation. You have to make an assessment. You have to make sure that you are properly or your applications are properly designed and protected in the data center. In some situation, the applications, it may not be able to move into the cloud provider because the data center, it's providing compensating controls, compensating security controls for the application. Then if you move this application to the cloud service provider without the efforts for moving these compensating security controls as well, then this means that the application, it will not be secure. Then there are a lot of things which you have to think about. And this is very important. If you have any exercise like that, I am quite ready to help you in figure out the if the decision of moving to the cloud is right or not. Ease of use administration, standardization. Standardization, I think, is this point, again, very important. In some situation, you may find that you have in one organization, we have multiple offices. We are using Office 365, some others, we are using Office 2016, whatever. But when you are using the cloud means that you have a standard version and all of the users are accessing the same version, and this, it will be very helpful for all the users. Okay. Now we will cover another concept for the cloud deployment models. And this, again, a very important topic. I think you heard about it, but we want to understand it. Again, my friends, I discovered that, I'm really sorry to say that, but at least 50% of people who are working in the cloud, they don't understand these terminologies correctly. 50% of the people who are working in the cloud environment, they don't understand the concept of the private, public, community, and hybrid terminology properly, although they are very simple. They are very simple. Okay, what about the public cloud? Public cloud, it's available to general public. Anyone who wants Office 365, he can pay the fees for the Microsoft, and they will provide them the access. And he will share the resources with the other users. What do you mean? As you remember when we mentioned that you have these shared resources, this host, when we say host, means that it is a server. Physical server. When we say host, it means a physical server. You have a physical server, and you have here the virtualization software, and over the virtualization software, you will have multiple VMs. And each VM, it can be assigned to a specific user or a specific customer. That's very easy. Well, this it will be for customer 1, this customer 2, customer 3, customer 4, and so on. Each one of them, we can use it. As you can see, all of them, we are share the same server, share the same server, same processor, same memory, same storage, and so on. Okay, what else? It's located on the premises of cloud provider. Of course, this it will be in the cloud provider premises. May be owned by whoever. It may be owned by a company, as in Microsoft, they are on it. In some situation, it may be owned by the government, and the government will provide the service. It may be controlled by, owned by the institution or a university or whatever. I don't care, but this it will be a private company or academic institution or the cloud service provider. This he is the owner, and it is very easy for setup, and it's inexpensive. It is inexpensive. Why it's inexpensive? Because you are sharing the resources with the others. When I bought a server, when this server it's not dedicated for one customer, it may be dedicated for 10 customers. When if the server costs $5,000, for example, then this server it will be shared by 10 users or 10 customers. By the end of the day, each customer have to pay $500 as overall cost. This is the public cloud. And of course, pay only for services consumed, pay as you use. This is the public cloud. What about the private cloud? Private cloud owned and controlled by single entity. Please take care about these words. Single entity. It is single entity. It may be company X, company Y, a specific company. And primarily, يعني, it is developed for own use, their own use. يعني, this company, it may IT certificate. I want to have my own private cloud because I don't want to publish my training course materials in cloud when it can be hacked or can be stolen. Then I will have my private cloud. I will have my own data center, and I will have a cloud service hosted in this data center, and I will publish all my documents, training, video training, and all this information on this private cloud. Then private cloud, it will serve only one user. It will serve only one user. Okay, may be operated by the organization. It can be operated by IT certificate itself. It's by and my network, or I don't have enough experience in managing this, or I don't have the time, I want to concentrate on developing the training materials, then I have to outsource this service into other third party, we can manage it. It depends upon the business needs. It can be located in my site. I can have it on my site. I have a room or a data center. I can have this as a service in my data center, or I can say, okay, I'll go to any cloud service provider and I'll tell him, please, I want to have a dedicated private cloud for me. And I will explain you exactly what do we mean by private cloud. I want to have a private cloud for me, and this it will be under your control, but this will be for me. What does it mean? I want to have, let's change the color of the pointer here and make it in red. I will have the host, a dedicated host for me. It will be a dedicated host for me. Then I will have again the virtualization. Yes, I will have the virtualization, but these VMs, it will not be shared with different customers. No, it will be only used for me. As Osama or as ID certificates, I will use these VMs only as ID certificates. This is one of the scenarios of the private cloud. The private cloud, it can be hosted in a cloud service provider on a dedicated host. And as we mentioned, when we say host, this means that server, a dedicated server, and the server, it will have virtualizations, it has VMs, but the VMs, they are not shared. It is dedicated only for one customer. Or we will have other concept. What is this concept? The other concept that, okay, I can have one host like that. Let's change the color into a different one to make life easy for you. I will have the host similar this host, and I can have multiple VMs as we can see, and these VMs, it will be shared with other users. Wait, if it will be shared with other users, it's not private. You just say this, it's a public. Yes, you are right, you are totally right. It is shared with other users as a public. But I have a point here. I will make something called logical isolation. I will make something called the logical isolation, where the data, for example, I will have VM3, and I will have VM4. This VM3 and 4, it will be encrypted. It will be encrypted. Then no one he will be able to keep the contents. Even VMs 2 or 1 or 5, they will not be able to read it. Also, I can control whatever any traffic it will come in or out from these VMs through what we firewall or IBS or DLB. Then this means that I will use more or additional security controls, which it will help me to isolate my private network. Just it is similar exactly, my friends, as the VPN. Now I have internet connection, but I have a private VPN. How? You have VPN, IPsec VPN tunnel over the internet. Although it's a public network, but by the end of the day, it's encrypted and it's tunneled between 2 points. Then all the data moved on the internet, it's encrypted. No one he will be able to read my data, because the data it will be encrypted and it will be in the form of a garbage for him, and it will be useless. Right? Then the point here, the private cloud, it can be in 2 forms. And please, I want you to concentrate on this. This is very important. The private cloud, it can be in 2 forms. Form number 1, it can be a dedicated host, but this it will be very expensive. It will be very expensive, because this means that the cloud service provider, he should provide you a server. In some situation, maybe a different track and so on. Or it can be isolated by additional security controls. Okay, we will come to the community cloud. To make life easy, community cloud, it's exactly the same as private cloud. To make life easy, community cloud, it's exactly the same as a private cloud. The only difference, it's 1 point. This is the point. What is it? It will be used with a group. Here in the cloud, Private cloud, we said that it will be used for single entity. Single entity. Here it will be a group of users. And the others, it will be exactly the same. Model and fish similar to private cloud, managed and controlled by one. For example, usually community cloud, when it will be used if you want to have infrastructure for all universities in your countries, or all the hospitals in your country, or all schools in your country. We have something common. We have some common interest between all of them. But for example, we may have a database for all the students, teachers, whatever, or maybe universities, maybe hospitals, and so on. When all these users, they will have access for the same data, and this it will be, for example, hospitals, we have some videos for surgeries, for operations, advices, medicines, technical studies, and so on. It is exactly the same as we mentioned. Again, it can be hosted in one of the hospitals, in one of the schools, one of the universities, one of the these parties, we can manage it, or it can be assigned to a third party to manage it, and so on. Okay, when community and private, it will be both of them exactly the same, but the only difference that the private, it will be for a single entity, the community, it will be for a group of organizations. The hybrid, it's very simple. It's a mix between two of the other models. That's it. One of the big mistakes, which is public in the market, that hybrid, it's private and public. No, it is not. Hybrid, it's not only private and public. For me, I see a lot of universities in UAE, in United Arab Emirates, in different countries, we have hybrid. But this hybrid, how it looks like, we have their own private cloud. We are saying, no, our data for the students and for the teaching staff, it's private, it's protected. We are not allowed this data to be exposed. Then this data, it will be hosted in our data centers. But still, we are, as a part of university, we want to share information with other universities, with other maybe education resources. When we have a community cloud, then the university, it has a hybrid cloud. We have community cloud and private cloud. Some others, they may have hybrid as community, public, and private. Why? The classified data, it's hosted in the private, and we have community to share information with the others. And the non-classified data, it's shared in the public, because of course, as we mentioned, that the public, it's easy and it is cost effective. Then why should I make investment in a private cloud, which it will be very expensive, although I can host this data in a public cloud, which it will be less expensive than the private cloud. These are the cloud deployment model for the cloud service development. Okay. In the last sessions, we discussed the cloud computing definitions, the cloud computing characteristics, and the cloud services deployment and the services. IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, public, private, community, and hybrid. Now we will discuss a new topic, which is the security concepts relevant to cloud computing. Some important security concepts which you have to understand related to the cloud computing. These concepts as cryptography, access control, data and media sanitation, network security, virtualization security, and some common threads. Cryptography, my friends, it's considered the backbone of the security. It's not only for the cloud, but it's even if you have data center and the data, it will be exchanged over the internet and with other cloud service, I mean with other partners or vendors. But mainly the cryptography, it has a very importance, especially in the cloud environment, because as we mentioned that the data, application, services are shared with other customers, and you want to isolate this data from the different customers, and this will be done only through the encryption. Cryptography is very important, and you have to understand that the encryption, it's based on two components, the encryption algorithm and the encryption key. And this, it will lead to the importance of the keys and how to make a key management and how to protect and develop the key, how to generate keys, distribute keys, develop keys, recover keys, and all this stuff. Also, the encryption, you have two different flavors of the encryption. That the encryption for the data, if it's at rest. Data at rest means that the data which is stored on the desktop and or the storage or servers. Data in transient, this it has the data exchange between servers, maybe over the internet, maybe over a network. It could be encrypted. Then if it's captured, hackers, they will not be able to understand this information and it will be useless for them. As we mentioned that the key management, it's a very important component of the cryptography. You have to work very close with your cloud service provider to manage the key management. Of course, it's highly recommended that you keep the key management under your control in your organization. Because this means that you will save and you will provide security controls for the keys, especially these keys can be used to decrypt the data, and it can compromise your application and services. The other factor or the concept related to security cloud computing is the access control. And access control, usually it have four. Actually, it has four different concepts, which is called A. This stands for identification, authorization, identification, authentication, authorization, and accounting. Identification, this means that who are you? Who are you? Authentication, authenticate or prove your identity. If you are saying I am Osama, prove that you are Osama. Then authorization, what you are allowed to do. Accounting, what did you do on the network? What are the services or applications or data which you access over the network? When we say account provisioning, this means that how you create a user credential for you over the network, then you will be able to access the cloud services. You have to make the provision for the user, and of course all the user information, it should be stored as username, as password, location, email, mobile, ground telephone line, building number, maybe address, whatever any attribute, all this information will be stored in the directory services. Usually it can be Active Directory or other. Of course, you know that the standard of the directory services, it's the X500 standard. Then you have the administrative and privileged access. The administrative and privileged access, this is very important because any user who will connect to the cloud service provider infrastructure to provision a server, to add processors, to add memories, or to change any configuration, this is very important. And if there is any hacker, he is monitoring this traffic, it will be very critical. And if he can make a control over the connection as man-in-the-middle attack or session hijacking or whatever, this it will be a crisis. Usually we are saying that it is highly recommend to use 2FA, which is two-factor authentication for the administrative and privileged access. Authorization, as we mentioned, that authorization, it is what you are allowed to do, what are the applications which you are allowed to access, what are the services you are allowed to access, and so on. The other security concept is the data and media sanitization. This is very important because what do we mean by data sanitization? This means that how you will remove the data from the cloud service provider if you want to quit his service. You are not satisfied with this cloud service provider, you want to move to a different one, or if you are not satisfied with the cloud service provider and you want to jump to a different one, or there may be another cloud service provider who will provide you cost-effective solution or better functions or whatever. Then there is a very, very, very important point here you have to understand, which is called lock-in. Lock-in. What is lock-in? Lock-in is similar as the word in English dictionary that you will be locked with the cloud service provider. Why? In some situation, as in Apple, for example, they are providing you some more features, which it will make life very easy and it will give you high performance and more integrity between their applications. But at the end of the day, these features are proprietary to Apple only. And for example, let me give you an example from my practical life. Usually, I am a big fan for Apple products. I have iPad, I have iPhone, I have Mac PC, but when I bought a watch, I bought Huawei watch, and they said that it will work with iOS, and it's great. But frankly speaking, it was not great. Why? Because yes, it can work with it, it's integrated, but at least 75% of the features are not available because we are saying that Apple, they have their own proprietary protocols for communication between these services, and we are not able to know it when we will not provide you these features of our watch. Then you will not be able to initiate a call, you will not be able to see the contact lists, all this stuff. Then when I had the Apple Watch was great because it provides me a lot of features. I can manage my mobile very easy, although it's if the mobile it's in a different room from my watch. Even believe it or not, I can run the camera on my mobile, and I can switch between the front camera and the back camera, and I can make photography, and it was great. Then what is the point here? The point here that if you are Apple user and you want to extract or export all your data to be imported into Android, for example, it will not be easy. Or in some situation, it will be impossible. Why? Because as we mentioned, Apple, we have their own proprietary feature. It's not something bad, it's good because we are providing you with more features, more performance, a lot of things which we mentioned before, which is really great, and you will enjoy your time. But unfortunately, this will not be helpful. This it will not be helpful. Why? Because I am not able to export this data into Android. This is the same concept as the cloud computing. You may have a cloud computing cloud service provider. He is providing CRM, for example, service. You are connecting with him. You are very happy. Everything is running great. You have your own data. You may spend 2 or 3 years. CRM, I mean Salesforce, they may contact you, and you found that we will provide you more features and maybe cost effective. You said, okay, I want to migrate into Salesforce. When you try to export the data from the vendor, your cloud service provider, you found that it's not, you are not able to import it. Then this means that you are locked into the cloud service provider. You will not be able to, you can export it, but it cannot be imported. Then you have to make your assessment. You have to make sure that this application, it can be cloud service provider is using the standard programming languages, standard libraries, standard runtime, standard interfaces, and you will be able to migrate the data and the applications. In some situation in cloud service provider, usually you will hear the portability, the expression of portability. Portability means that the data, it can be migrated, or it can be moved from cloud model to a different cloud model, or from one cloud provider into a different cloud provider. Under locked in, this is a bad characteristic. We have to take care about it. You have, as a security or cloud specialist, to work very close with the cloud provider to understand if they have really any proprietary application or data format or data architecture or database architecture or whatever, anything which is proprietary for them and it cannot be used with the other cloud service providers. The main issue, how you make sure that the data, it will be deleted. Now I want to migrate, I export my data. Export my data does not mean delete data. And even when you delete the data, does not mean that you delete the data, because actually when you delete the data, it will not delete the data. It will delete the pointer to the data. But actually the data, it will be on your hard disk. And this is the reason why when your hard disk is spoiled, you take the hard disk and you will go to any computer shop. He will tell you, okay, I will try to recover the data, and he is able to really recover some of the data. Why? Because the data actually is stored on the hard disk, but what you are deleting is the pointer. Then how we can ensure that the data is really deleted from the hard disk? We have 3 different types. What are these types? Number 1, you have the hard disk spoiling or physically damaged. You have hard disk, you have to spoil the hard disk, you have to break the hard disk. And of course, this, it can be acceptable in your data center. This is your hard disk. You want to spoil it, you want to do whatever, anything, it's your, you are the ownership and you are allowed to do whatever, anything. But now you will go to the cloud service provider and you will tell him, I want to spoil all your hard disks. I am afraid that he will destroy your head. Then this solution, it's not allowed in cloud service provider. Then what is the other solution? Degaussing. What is degaussing? Degaussing, man, you have to expose the hard disk to electromagnetic field. Because you know the data, it's stored on a magnetic media in form of 0-1. Then if it's exposed into electromagnetic field, then the data, it will be spoiled and deleted. But again, you will not be able to do this because, as we mentioned, from the characteristics of the cloud computing, that this is shared resources. Then you are not the only one who is using this data or this hard disk. Then if you degauss the hard disk, you delete data for the other users as well or other customers as well. Then again, this concept, it will not be acceptable. And or the other solution? The other solution, overriding. That the data, it can be overridden. Yes, this is be a good one, but from some standards, they will define that the data, it should be written twice or 3 times, and with a specific pattern, then the data, it will not be able to be recovered. This is a good option, and here you have to define this very clear in your SLA. If you did not define this in SLA, and you quit the cloud service provider, and your data, it was leaked by some way from the cloud service provider, don't blame anyone rather than yourself, because you did not do the due diligence exercise properly. The other method, it will be cryptography erasing. This is very easy. Encrypt the data, destroy the keys. Thank you very much. No one will be able to recover this data. And again, this is a very effective method in protecting your data or data sanitization in cloud service environments. Okay. The other topic or the other security concept, it will be the network security. Network security, it's very important because, as mentioned by some of the standards as ISO 27001, NIST 800-54, I think, they mentioned that applications and data are not secure until the infrastructure is secure. Then, how we can make our network security secure? How make our network infrastructure secure? This is very easy. For example, you can split the network into multiple zones. You have internal zone, external zone, and DMZ. Also, in the internal zone, you can have multiple zones, internal zones for maybe divisions, for maybe servers, for maybe companies, whatever. You can use firewalls between the zones when it can protect the data and the traffic which is exchanged between the different zones. You can use, as we mentioned, firewall, or you can use IPS. Also, which it discover the attacks in the application layer. Also, you can encrypt the traffic over the network. Of course, to use IPsec over the network, it will be somehow difficult because it will decrease the performance, but in some situation, it may be mandatory as mandated by some government requirements that all the data internally should be encrypted to avoid any reconnaissance. In this case, although it will affect the performance, but it is mandatory. But in some situation, company they may go into the solution of MACsec, and this MACsec it is exactly the same as the IPsec, but IPsec it's working in the layer 3 of OSI model, but the MACsec it's working in layer 2 in OSI model, and it has better performance, but it may be a little bit more expensive because all the devices must be aware about the MACsec feature, and it should be supported. Then these are some of the ideas which you can use for the network security. For virtualization security, we have some concepts, or mainly two concepts which I want to speak about, that you have type 1 hypervisor and type 2 hypervisor. What is the difference between both of them? The type 1 hypervisor, you have here the host or the server. Then you have here the virtualization software. Then you have here the operating system. Okay? In the type 2, it is not similar. You have the host, then you have here the operating system. Then you will have the virtualization software. Here you have virtualization, then operating system. From your point of view, which one is more secure, type 1 or type 2? What do you think? Which is more secure, type 1 or type 2?
Sir, I think in type 2. Can you hear me?
Any answer?
Type 2.
2. Okay. Who agree about this answer?
Shahad is answering, but we cannot hear her voice is very low.
Shahd, no, Shahd, it's muted.
Yeah, she's saying type 2.
Okay, yeah, she sent a shot and saying type 2. Okay. Do you agree about, all of you, about type 2? Anyone is saying type 1? Okay. the more secure is type 1, not type 2. Why? Because here, if you have this as a host, and here the virtualization software, then the virtualization software, it is built on the host direct, and the operating system, it's coming up on the virtualization. Then the operating system, it will not affect the virtualization. If I have any bugs here or any problems or whatever, I don't care, because this it will not affect the relation between virtualization and software and the host. In this situation, if I have the host here, and here the operating system, and here virtualization, then if I have any bug or problem in the operating system, then this means that it will affect the relation between virtualization and the host. And I'm quite sure that you are aware about this one, but you may not know. Usually what we are doing, we are bringing software, it may be from any company, maybe VMware or Citrix or whatever, you install it on your desktop on Windows operating system, and you will create a VM, then you will install Linux or Unix, and you will say that I can run Unix on my machine. This is virtualization, but it's running as type 2 because you have your operating system and this application is designed to run on the operating system. Then cloud service provider, usually we are using type 1 hypervisors. Most popular type 1 hypervisors, which we have here, we are based on my information, of course, because, you know, subhanAllah, no one knows everything, but from my experience, Hyper-V from Microsoft, but usually it's not used with cloud service providers. This it will, performance, I don't think that it will be suitable for it, but you have VMware. Of course, VMware, it's powerful virtualization software, type 1. And KVM, KVM, this keyboard, video, and mouse. KBS or something like that. It's free, it's open source, Unix. And again, it's a great virtualization software. I will check the name and tell you about it tomorrow. Usually, you will find it in universities, in research labs, in community clouds, which schools, government, and all this stuff, because it's free of charge, and it is popular, especially for these people who are working with the cloud. Okay. We have some other informations which I want to share it with you, and if you don't mind, I want to open all of them, then we can work and discuss all of them together. Data breach and data loss. What is the difference between data breach and data loss? Any answer? What is the difference between data breach and data loss?
Data breach is done by somebody. Data loss is the loss of the data from a user.
Okay. Any other answer? Okay, that's right. The data breach, it does not mean that the data is lost. No, data is still there. But as Badri he mentioned now, it's someone he have access for it, unauthorized access. Unauthorized access. In security terminology, it affects the data confidentiality. It affects the data confidentiality. But the data is still available. I still have the data, but there is some unauthorized access to the data. In the data loss, in security terminology, it affects what? Availability. Data availability. Data, it's not available. It may be hard disk damage, and the data, I don't have a backup of it. It may be cloud service provider and data is not available as a backup. Then this means that the data breach, unauthorized access for the data loss, that the data is not available anymore. These are two of the common threats in the cloud. Insufficient identity credential and access management, which we discussed right now as identity access management and IAM and IaaA. We mentioned, if you remember, in last few slides, we discussed the concept of IaaA, identification, authentication, authorization, and accounting. Identification, who are you? Authentication, prove your identity. Authorization, what you are authorized to do. Accounting, what did you do? And all this information, it should be recorded, logged, because if there is any attack against any of these features of security concepts, this it will be a crisis. Just imagine user, he will have a man-in-the-middle attack or session hijacking. Then this means that you will able to take a control over your data. You can change some of your data and so on. Then this it will be a crisis. And also, as we mentioned before, for privileged user, you have to provide strong authentication, 2FA or whatever. Insecure interfaces and API, as we mentioned, or I did not think that we mentioned this before. Anyway, the API is application program interface, and this is considered as interface for any application. Gentlemen, just to make life easy, I want to make the concept of API very easy for you. I am quite sure that all of you are familiar with the Office. If I tell you open the Office, you will go to your programs, Microsoft, Word, you will open the Word. Okay, you will start to work. This API, this screen in front of you, it's an API, application program interface, because this is interface, your interface as user interface for the application. But if I tell you open Word by Office 365, you will not open Office, you will open browser. Come on, browser, it can open Office? Yes, it can open Office because it's API. I have an API, application program interface, Office through HTML or XML, whatever. And this means that it's an application program interface, and interface will be Word, but through the browser. In some situations, programmers are using some APIs, which is from the internet, and this it will be a crisis in some situation because it may be developed by hackers, or there may be some bugs or backdoors, and these bugs are discovered by hackers. They will be able to utilize it and use it to compromise your application and your data. But when you develop your interfaces and application program interface, or any of these from the internet, you have to make sure that these applications or interfaces are secure. You have to review it. You have to make sure the reference and who developed these applications, and if possible, you have to review it line by line. Then the other concept, the system vulnerabilities. I am quite sure you are aware about this. And when we say system vulnerabilities, please don't think about operating systems. It may be anything, maybe hardware, software, operating system, application. Some situation, it may be a hardware device. It may be a firewall. If you have a bug on a firewall, it's a vulnerability. Then it's a firewall, but it have a bug. Yes, it can happen. And this is the reason why we companies, we are updating their images. We are providing more security features, and on the other hand, we are fixing the bugs which they discover. Then vulnerabilities, it's very important. As you can see, in the security concepts relevant to cloud computing, although all of us know about vulnerabilities, all of us know about vulnerability management, but it is one of the biggest headache for the attacks. Account hijacking, if there is any user, he's connecting to a server or any service, and there is another hacker, he will spoof his identity, or he will take over the connection, and it will seem that he is the original user, although he disabled the original user and he is communicating with the server as the user. And of course, he's taking an access for the data and the applications similar to the permissions of the user himself, and this is considered as account hijacking. Malicious insiders, I think this is very important. This of course, it can happen in your organization. It happens, and we saw a lot of scenarios. But mainly in the cloud service provider, this can be considered as a big headache. Just imagine one of the cloud service providers engineers. He's not satisfied. He's feeling that he is not happy. He's not building his career. His manager, it's not fair with him. Then he decided to leave the company, and he wants to cause a problem for the company and for the management. Then he decided to leak some data, to capture data, to install a bomb. Then when he will leave after some time, this bomb it will work, and it may delete some data or do whatever, anything. Then these are the problems which can be caused by the malicious insiders. Advanced resistant threats, APT, as it's mentioned, advanced resistant threats. These are groups of hackers. They are very patient. They are well known. And we have the experience that we can penetrate your network, we can stay resident in the network and monitor reconnaissance. This can take weeks, months, we don't care. We are very patient, we are very qualified until we find the real chance which we can hit your network. And usually the APT, we are able to penetrate your desktop or server or whatever by using the social engineering or by using many social engineering. Send you any email, then when you will open it will install any application on your PC or on the server, or it will send you some websites, it will tell you there are hot pictures and photos on this side. If you will open, really you will find the pictures, but in the background they are installing backdoor or target holes or whatever. Insufficient due diligence, and this is the exercise which we mentioned before, that when you are moving from a cloud service provider, data center to cloud service provider, you have to make sure that you took the right decision. The application it can be transferred without affecting the performance. Security controls in the cloud service provider, it will be enough. Whatever any application in the cloud service provider, it can be integrated with your application. In some situation, you may find a big organization which have applications are integrated together. It may be application 1 integrated with application 2, integrated with application 3, and so on. And this is working very nice in the data center. But when you are migrating all into the cloud service provider, it's not easy to do all this integration because you don't have administrative passwords. You are not able to read logs. You are not able to read events. You are not able to do anything in the cloud service provider. And you have to depend upon the cloud service provider to provide you this information, which in some situations may not be enough. And at the end of the day, you may fail to do this integration. But if the data or application integration, it's mandatory for your business, then you have to think very carefully to move into a cloud service provider or not. Abuse of cloud service provider, this again, one of the good concepts, but I'll tell you a story to make the concept very clear without going in technical details. I am a hacker. I want to make a denial of service for the cloud service provider. Very simple. I will call the hacker. I will call the cloud service provider. I will provision 2 or 3 or 5 servers, and I will develop any script. It will create processes. It will make a load on processor and memory, and it will request processor memory. When the servers, it will start to utilize all the resources. It will start to ask for dynamic resources from the shared resources. Instead of having two processors, it will ask for another two, then two, and the cloud service provider, he will provide all the resources required, because he does not understand that it's an attack. He is thinking that this is a customer and he has an application which it requires resources, and by the end of the day I can consume all the resources of the cloud service providers by memory, processor, so and so. Then this is one of the types of the attacks. We will see tomorrow how we can defeat these attacks, but it's one of the attacks which it can happen. Denial of service, I think we are familiar with it, and shared technology issues. Shared technology issues, just I want to go in details about this one because it's a little bit confusing. You remember when we said that we have a host, this is our host, and we have the visualization software, and we have here VMs. Okay, what I am carrying now, this part, the host, and I want to think about only one thing, the RAM. Actually, it is a single RAM. It may be 128 GB RAM. Maybe 128 GB RAM. And this 128 GB RAM, we are distributed across the multiple VMs. Actually, all the VMs here, we are working in some memory registers. We are working in some memory registers. But actually, we are in the same physical memory. Then, you know, when you have a process and this process wants to have an access to the processor, we have to create something called memory register. It is for register where it have to put the data, and it will have something called RB. This it's called a return pointer. When the application, it will put the data here, where this data, it will be moved into the processor. Then after it will finish, it will do the return pointer, and the return pointer, it will return it to the original location in the memory where it can continue operations. In some situation, hackers are very smart. He will, instead of the RB, he will add some malicious code. Then when we have the malicious code, it will create some problems in the memory. It will be confused, and he will be able to read all the contents of the memory. Just imagine now all the contents is not related to him only. It is related to all the other customers who are sharing the memory with him. It may be authentication information. Some tokens, it can be stored in the memory. We don't want to store it in the hard disk, because these tokens have some authorization or authentication information, including passwords. In some other situation, it may be key management, a key which is used for encryption, decryption. Then just imagine if the hacker, he was smart, and they are really smart, and he was able to install one application or some attack on this RB, and he is able to capture some data, sensitive data from the information. Okay. I think the time, it's 9 o'clock now, and this time we will not be able to continue. I think it will be better to stop here, and we can continue tomorrow.